You know, throughout the world, skulls have been the foremost symbol of death, a powerful icon in the vocabularies of cultures all over the planet. And 13 crystal skulls of apparent ancient origin have been found in parts of Mexico, Central America, and South America, comprising some very fascinating subjects of the 20th century archaeology. Now, these skulls, found near the ancient ruins of Mayan and Aztec civilizations, are a mystery just as strange as the pyramids of Egypt or the Nazca lines of Peru that we've talked so much about. And some skulls are believed to be between 5,000 and 36,000 years old, and many people of the ancient times talk of their remarkable magical and healing properties. In a moment, Richard Shafsky joins us as we talk about crystal skulls on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. I'm George Norrie. So who is Richard Shafsky? Well, he's a man that started his adulthood in a normal fashion. He had a job, a family, and then one day at work, he ran into a snag, which led him to find a resolution to outside normal channels. On that day, he decided to embark on a journey from which he has never returned. Under the tutelage of the founder of the Crystal Skull Society and a Mayan shaman priest in Mexico, he was introduced to the Mayan crystal skull and was charged with many life assignments that 30 years later has brought him to this program. Tonight, our guest, Richard Shafsky. Hey, Richard, how are you? Richard, are you there? Well, we will see where Richard Shafsky is. Maybe the Mayan skulls have captured Richard Shafsky. We don't know where he may be. He was just there seconds ago. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the crystal skulls to make sure that we can get our connection with Mr. Shafsky. Like I said, there are 13 skulls, crystal skulls, that have been found on this planet. And there are several very famous crystal skulls. One of them, the Mitchell-Hedges crystal skull. Now, that's the most widely celebrated and mysterious one of all kind for two reasons. First, it's very similar in form to an actual human skull. It even has a fittable, removable jawbone, and most known crystal skulls are of more stylized structures, often with unrealistic features and teeth that are simply etched into a single skull piece. And secondly, it's impossible to say how the Mitchell-Hulls skull was constructed. Now, from a technical standpoint, it appears to be an impossible object which today's most talented sculptors and engineers would be unable to duplicate. Now, the discovery of this baffling artifact is a controversial matter. It was brought into prominence by a British explorer, F.A. Mitchell-Hedges, who claimed that his daughter unearthed it in 1924. Mitchell-Hedges led an expedition into the ancient Mayan ruins in Belize, searching for evidence of Atlantis when all this happened. Now, this story goes on, I hope I don't tell all of it, but the story goes on that his daughter Anna was rummaging inside a structure believed to have once been a temple when she found the beautifully carved cranium of the crystal skull. So that's one of the major ones there. And we're going to talk with Richard about, of course, the Mayan crystal skull, and that, too, is just an incredible skull. Richard, we've got your back, huh?
You bet.
There you go. I was talking a little bit about one of the most famous skulls. That's the Mitchell-Hedges skulls. But you've done a lot of work with the Mayan crystal skull. Tell me about that.
Yes, George. I was first introduced to the Mayan crystal skull back in the early 1970s. I was, at that time, working for a trucking company in the San Francisco Bay Area. There was a strike going on, and a shipment was lost. It was a very important corporate client. I went to a co-employee. I was the operations manager at that time of the trucking company. And I went to a fellow employee, and knowing that his father was a psychic, and I was having to go out of bounds, but I had to locate this shipment. Anyway, he introduced me to his father. His name was Nick Nasarino. Now, Nick was the founder of the Crystal Skull Society back in 1948. Nick invited me over to his home where he gave me what we would know as a reading. During that reading, he was not only able to locate the crystal, or not the crystal for me, the shipment for me. He identified exactly where it was located in the warehouse, but he also passed to me a photocopy of what I didn't know at the time was a crystal skull that later came to be known as the Mayan crystal skull.
You know, Richard, I've been talking about these skulls being anywhere between 5,000 and 36,000 years old. Do you subscribe to that?
Oh, George, I think actually they're much older than that. When I went down to Mexico, and which is where I found myself about 2 years after I had the reading with Frank Nasarino, he told me I would be coming into contact with the crystal skull and that I would play a pivotal, crucial role in bringing it up into the United States. Well, when I went down to Mexico, I was at a business meeting, and at that meeting, I had a crystal with me that Frank had given to me. I transferred it from one pocket to another, and there were businessmen there from Mexico City, but there were also a couple of men from Oaxaca. One of the men from Oaxaca showed up at my door in the hotel a couple of hours later, and he when he knocked on the door, I opened it. He came in. He saw the crystal that I had sitting on the bed, which he had noticed I had in my hand during our meeting, and he walked over, he picked it up, and the moment he picked it up, he looked at me and he said, Ricardo, Piramido Egypto, and skull. Well, there was the image of a crystal skull in that crystal that I had. Now, this Mayan I came to know as Francisco. Francisco was a Mayan shaman. He was the last of a lineage of Mayan priests that had protected this particular skull, known as the Mayan skull, for far longer than 5,000 years. In fact, in the history of the lineage of the Mayan shaman and those that preceded the shaman, it goes back, my understanding, several 100,000 years.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Now, we believe that there are 13 crystal skulls that have been discovered so far. Do you agree with that number?
Well, George, I don't disagree with that number. I really don't know where that number 13 came up. It's been circulated around for a very long time. I'm personally aware of 9 what we'll call ancient crystal skulls. I'm sure that there are 13. I do believe there are probably more than 13. 13 is a significant number in the circles that talk about the skulls, but I don't really know that I can say that there are only 13 or that there's any significance with that.
Richard, do they all look the same, or are they different?
Oh, some of them are quite different, George. For example, the Mitchell Hedges skull has a detachable jaw. It is of clear crystal quartz. Now, the Mayan skull, which I brought in, that does not have a detachable jaw. It is made of clear quartz crystal. It's rather crude looking in some ways compared to the Mitchell Hedges. Now, the skulls that I'm aware of, some are of clear quartz crystal, similar to Max, for example, which you've had on your show before.
Right.
The Mayan skull and Max are similar in the type of crystal they're made from.
Also called the Texas crystal skull.
The Texas crystal skull, yes, in the good safekeeping of Joanne Parks.
Yes.
And there are other crystal skulls that are made of amethyst. Some are of a beautiful, beautiful aquamarine. Some are of a rose quartz. Some look rather crude. Some are very, shall we say, modern and very well defined, like the Mitchell Hedges.
The skulls themselves, how do you think they were made, even if they were made way back into antiquity days?
Well, that's a question that there's a lot of speculation about. There are several theories as to how they were made. Now, the ones that are the true ancient skulls, the listening audience should understand that they don't have what we would call wheel markings on them, nor do they have what we would be able to identify as carving markings on them.